We can't even imagine in this day and age we're having a conversation when it includes the topic forced organ harvesting. The Communist Party of China, if they don't do anything else well, they do propaganda pretty well against us to sow the seeds of doubt. You don't have to be Chinese, you don't have to be an American, you just have to be alive to know that is wrong and that cannot continue. We have to keep fighting for this. We have to keep raising awareness. We cannot be intimidated. We cannot be silenced. This is a mission that we have to be on until the practice is stopped.
朋友们好，欢迎来到辛恬面对面，我是辛恬。生活在21世纪，但是您能想象吗？今天世界上仍然存在着按需杀人的黑暗罪行——活摘器官。近期，美国国会参众两院跨党派联手推出法轮功保护法案 （法轮功 Protection Act）， 直指这场在中国已经长达25年的迫害，要求制裁那些参与和协助强摘法轮功学员器官的人员以及知情不报者。这项法案的关键推动者之一就是我们今天的嘉宾，宾夕法尼亚州国会众议员斯考特·佩里 （Scott Perry）。佩里众议员曾经在美国陆军服役，做到准将。2013年当选宾州第10选区国会众议员，一直到今天。这场访谈将带您了解美国的民选官员是如何看外国专制政权用这种手段来迫害老百姓，为什么他们会觉得这是跟自己息息相关的？美国国会又是如何正视这场正在中国发生的罪行？好，让我们一起来聆听佩里议员的见解。Congressman Perry, welcome to our show.
Well, it's great to be with you, Kathy. Thanks for the opportunity.
Could you please tell us why it's important for you to reintroduce it in this Congress?
Well, it's important that we keep the conversation going. More importantly, we want something done, at least to acknowledge that the Communist Party of China is involved in these atrocities, and this is happening in the 21st century. We don't want forced organ harvesting anywhere. We can't even imagine in this day and age that we're having a conversation when it includes the topic forced organ harvesting. And most people around the world, don't live in China, aren't members of the Falun Gong, and likely don't know that this is occurring anywhere in the world, but that they're engaged in commerce with a nation that sanctions and allows and promotes this kind of activity. Most people around the world don't know that there's no waiting list in China to receive an organ transplant because they're accustomed to civilized nations where people that need an organ have to wait until there's a donor. There aren't willing donors standing by to lose their lives to give up their organs to somebody else in need. But yet that's what's happening in China. And under the Communist Party rule there, as a way to dissuade and discourage people from the practice of Falun Gong and to rid. It is essentially the ridding of these members of that society by taking their organs, and you can't live without your own organs. So then you're dead. And it's important that we punish the Communist Party of China for doing this. But the most important thing is to stop this practice altogether. We can deal with accountability after the fact, but what we got to do is make sure that this practice ends this very moment.
According to the Falun Gong Information Center, they said this historical bill is the first federal law to specifically combat the decades-long human rights abuse suffered by tens of millions of Falun Gong practitioners. And as you previously mentioned, multiple congressional resolutions have been adopted since 1999 and condemning the campaign of repression. So this bill specifically, you actually introduced it before too. Can you tell us why it takes that long?
Well, I don't know why. It should be simple. I guess most lawmakers don't want to believe this is happening. They're unaware. They can't believe it when they do hear it's happening. and they want to continue a good relationship with China, the markets, the commerce that we engage in as Americans and as free people, and they don't want a circumstance where it's uncomfortable to make this accusation. And quite honestly, I think they don't believe it because they can't imagine it's happening, and they think that maybe, I imagine they think that this is made up, that this is hyperbole, that this is just accusations without any proof. That's not the case at all. And so I think that it's just a continual conversation that I have to have with my colleagues about how this is happening, why it's important, and the way to get to it is to make sure that anybody that's involved in this illegal organ harvesting trade is then prosecuted for it. So that's what the bill seeks to do. We want the practice of forced organ harvesting ended, and the way we think that we do that is to make sure that anybody that is involved in it suffers the possibility of being prosecuted and going to jail. And so that's what the bill does. And I wish it weren't taking so long. We have introduced this in prior Congresses, but we need to have this bubble to the surface, take a vote on it, and see if we can get it to the Senate, have the Senate vote on it, get a presidential signature so that law enforcement can start doing its job. Right now, they don't have any way to punish people that are involved in this practice.
As you mentioned, sometimes people just too kind to believing such atrocity can happen, right? So what and at what point and which evidence really convinced you to believe that is happening?
Well, there was an international organization that went to China. Now, we know that the Communist Party, we're not going to let them go to the forced labor camps. We're not going to let them go to see where the Falun Gong are operated on and had their organs harvested. We knew that was not going to be allowed by the Communist Party because they want to continue this operation in secrecy. But we also know that the evidence that they did find, like I said, no waiting list in the Communist Party of China. And, the more wealthy people can just pay more and get their transplant immediately. We know what the consequences of that are, and we know how you get to a position where you can offer that kind of thing. And the only way to have that service to offer is to have a ready-made set of donors that can be forced to give up their organs and lose their lives for other people. We know that's the case, and so that evidence is overwhelming. Of course, many in Congress, most in Congress, if you served any time, have heard these stories. While they seem sensational, but and you like you said, you don't want to believe them. But I think at this point, the evidence is overwhelming. And of course, the Communist Party of China doesn't even want to discuss these things or actually refute them with evidence. So they don't really have any evidence to refute them. They just choose not to speak about them.
Mm-hmm. The New York Times, actually, it was found that the CCP launched the new overseas campaign against Falun Gong and strategy involved in using Western media, social media, and online influencers to discredit Falun Gong. So these type of things, do you think that's also part of the reason that Americans, including probably maybe some congressional members, not really understanding the truth? Do you think that's possible?
Yeah, of course it is. I mean, look, the propaganda, the Communist Party of China, if they don't do anything else well, they do propaganda pretty well, and they use social media platforms and our media in general against us to sow the seeds of doubt, to destroy people's reputation, which is what they have done in this case. And it does add some credibility issues to the subject, which is what they want. All they need is some shred of doubt where somebody says, that really can't be true. No one would do that in the 21st century. That is barbaric. That is something from, some ancient medieval kind of a time period. No one would do something like that on a mass scale in the modern age. And that's what people want to believe, that couldn't happen. They can't believe somebody would be so evil and some practice that a government would sanction and be a part of such a practice in this day and age after everything we've seen in history. And so they are good at sowing the seeds of doubt, and then they can choose to move the conversation elsewhere. People don't want to be discredited. People don't want to be disbelieved. People don't want to be associated with people that have been discredited and are disbelieved as somehow not being factual, not talking based in fact, not being, not talking about things that are realistic. And so it's very powerful, and it has a chilling effect on the conversation. I just won't be dissuaded from that, because if the Chinese Communist Party wants to prove to the world that they're not doing it, then open up all your facilities to free journalists that want to come in and see. Let them report accurately. Let them speak with Falun Gong practitioners. Let them speak to family members that have lost family members. And let's get all the information out there. Let's get all the evidence out there. But the Communist Party of China doesn't ever offer that. So if you're not offering it, it seems likely to me that you have something very suspicious and unpleasant to hide.
That's a very good point. Why they never open it up, even after so many pressure from the U.S. and Congress and in the international world. And the other thing is, in August 2021, back then, Tucker Carlson reported on Fox News about an unusual incident, saying last summer, 2020, while COVID-19 was raging across the U.S., those still reading the New York Times noticed something strange. Hundreds of articles published over the past decades suddenly disappeared. And the New York Times sees itself as a living history record, right? So, but at that time, a massive number of articles vanished. And what are those articles? They are actually, every single one was a paid propaganda piece from the CCP disguised as news. So
we lived through all this with the Wuhan virus, the pandemic that originated at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. And people that said that were derided. They were called fearmongers and non-credible. You have no evidence. Meanwhile, there's not one shred of evidence to support the Communist Party of China's assertion that it originated from a bat or a pangolin in a wet market. There's zero evidence of that. Yet we know that they lied while people in mass numbers died from the Wuhan virus, yet we're supposed to believe them without any evidence whatsoever about organ harvesting. I'm sorry, we're not going to believe it, because we don't think it's true. And you're known liars at this point, so we don't believe liars.
Yeah, and how do you see how the Chinese Communist Party using the media in the U.S., which is supposed to be the free media, right?
Yeah.
To deceive people here?
Well, look, they've got a huge market. They've got a big checkbook. They write checks. They do advertising, and they threaten the bar to their market. 1 billion people for United States companies, and it's very effective. Companies are in business to make money. Companies like the New York Times, they want the advertising, they want the relationship, and they don't want to jeopardize that. Of course, the Communist Party of China knows that, and they use that leverage to silence this discussion. And some people can be silenced. People like me can't be silenced.
How do you think, especially after the COVID-19 and how U.S. and the whole world, how does that affect people's understanding of CCP, especially with their about their decades-long persecution of its own people who practice Falun Gong?
Well, I think what it should do, I think that certainly America, but the whole world is waking up to the fact that that China and its people are ruled under the iron fist of the Communist Party of China, which is interested in power and not interested in the civil rights and the human rights of its population or any population around the globe. They're willing to lie, they're willing to kill over it, and they're willing to cover up their lies. If they're willing to do that to people outside their country, what do you think they're willing to do to people inside the country that they're now currently running? So I think that people are becoming skeptical based on these lies, but unfortunately, people need to be betrayed multiple times before they really truly believe. And there's a lot of people out there that still believe somehow that China was a rational and fair actor in the pandemic that stemmed from the Wuhan lab of Institute of Virology. And, they are still giving the Communist Party of China the benefit of the doubt. And of course, it is at their own peril. And of course, it's at the peril of people that are persecuted within China, whether it's the Uyghurs or the Falun Gong or Christians or anybody else that is not towing the party line of the Communist Party of China.
This bill, the Falun Gong Protection Bill, mandates the sanctions both economically and through visa restrictions. Could you please tell us why such sanctions and how effective do you think it will help to stop this atrocity?
Well, the first thing to do is to provide some credibility, and anybody that's involved in the forced organ harvest trade that is sanctioned or denied a visa for that reason specifically will shed light on the subject and will add credibility to the subject so that we can dig further into it and highlight that China has not only been allowing this, but the Communist Party of China has been promoting this. We're trying to take whatever step we can to make sure this practice is ended. But China itself is a sovereign nation. They are ruled by the Communist Party of China. And the United States and other countries can't go in there and save these people from the Communist Party of China. It's going to take China itself. But what we can do is highlight this around the globe. And when it starts including arrests and sanctions, then they will see that it is real and that it must be dealt with. Until then, people will remain skeptical that it's even happening, which is what the Communist Party of China wants.
Right. So the other requirements of this bill is it requires the U.S. president to submit a list of relevant congressional committees within 180 days of enactment, identifying individuals who have knowingly and directly participate or assisted with involuntary organ harvesting. So how confident do you think President Trump, would be agreeing with such an act?
Well, I'm sure that the president doesn't want the Communist Party or anybody to be forcibly harvesting organs of their citizens. And if the Congress passes it, it will provide the impetus for law enforcement to go out and locate these cases and adjudicate these cases. And once that's done, there has to be an accountability for being involved in such a trade. And so, the president is fully on board and fully supportive of personal rights, of human rights. And he's not going to give the Communist Party of China a pass to keep doing these kind of things. So we have every reason to believe that the president will be happy to sign this bill if we can get it through Congress. But the first thing is to get it, get a vote in committee, get it on the floor, get it moved out of committee, get it to the Senate, have the conversation there. See who doesn't want to discuss these horrific atrocities and who's going to defend those horrific atrocities. Hopefully no one will. It gets to the president's desk, I'm sure he'll be happy to sign it. He doesn't want these atrocities to continue either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, actually, this bill has been previously and now this time being sponsored by partisan members of the Congress. So what do you think that tells?
Well, that tells that both sides. You mean bipartisan? We have bipartisan co-sponsorship. Yes. That means it's this is not a political issue. This is an issue of right and wrong. Both sides can agree on it, and this is a win for everybody when you can both agree to make the world a better place. As Republicans and Democrats, we disagree on a lot of things, but we don't disagree on this. This is So this is an easy win for everybody involved, but most primarily for the free people, the people that wish to be free, that are living under the boot of the Communist Party of China. They want to be free too. They don't want their organs harvested. They don't want their relatives killed. They want to be able to practice their beliefs as free people.
I'm sure you probably have some direct contacts with the Falun Gong practitioners. That's why you decide to support them. That's part of the reason. So to you, what's your impression of Falun Gong practitioners?
Well, they seem to be very nice people. They just want to live their lives peacefully and peaceably. and practice their beliefs. They're not asking for anything special. They're not against their government. They just want to be free to practice peacefully, and they should be. And that's been my impression of everyone that I've met, of the people that have come to talk to me about this issue.
Yeah. Now, so this bill has been put out, introduced again. What do you expect, and how do you think if people wanted to, our audience or other people, what can they do?
They should contact their member of Congress and urge their member of Congress to get it to the floor for a vote, and then to vote in favor of it. And then, once that happens, they can urge the United States Senator, there's 2 for each state. You should call each one, be in touch with them, and let them know that this is important to you. Organ harvesting is barbaric. It cannot be allowed to go on, whether it's through the Communist Party of China or anybody else, and that you would support the bill, and you ask them to support the bill. The only thing that can be gained from it is the end to forced organ harvesting. Who's against that?
Yeah, and if for your constituents in your district, for example, who are Chinese Americans, what do you think? Even though they not practice Falun Gong, what would you say to them? The importance of them supporting this?
Well, you don't have to be a Falun Gong practitioner to know that having your organs forcibly removed by your government is unacceptable. You don't have to be Chinese. You don't have to be an American. You just have to be alive to know that is wrong and that cannot continue. So again, I don't know who publicly supports forced organ harvesting. I haven't met that person yet. I don't think they exist except within the Communist Party of China. And I don't think that many of those people live in the United States or in my district.
Yeah. So lastly, anything else you would like to say to our audience?
I would say we have to keep fighting for this. We have to keep raising awareness. We cannot be intimidated. We cannot be silenced. This is a mission that we have to be on until the practice is stopped. It's not going to stop on its own. It's only going to stop under pressure. And that pressure comes from each one of us to doing our, what part we can, whether it's making a phone call, telling your neighbor, reminding people that this is going on, informing them. We all have to do our part, and we all have to be relentless about it, or it's going to continue. It is horrific, it is barbaric, and it must stop.
All right. Thank you so much, Congressman, for coming to our show to talk about this important act.
All right. Well, thank you very much. God bless you. Keep fighting. Someday we will be victorious, but we're not going to be victorious if we stop. So we got to stay after it every single day. So God bless you, and thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you so much. 跟佩里议员的对话，让我们更加清楚地认识到，中共的强摘器官行为不只是中国的问题，而是一场全球人权危机。这次的法轮功保护法案向世界传递了一个非常明确的信息，那就是活摘器官的罪行是不能被忽视的，正义必须被伸张。法案明确指出，中共长期以来针对法轮功学员实施活摘器官的暴行，将人权迫害与器官交易结合，形成了一个以按需杀人为特征的罪恶链条。法案提出了一系列的具体政策，包括要求美国总统和国务卿向国会提交相关的名单和详细报告，以采取制裁措施，像财产冻结和禁止入境美国，禁止美国跟中共在器官移植领域的任何合作。而制裁的对象呢，不仅限于直接参与者，还包括协助者或者是知情不报的共谋者。它的核心目标就是终止中共以国家力量支持的器官摘取产业，并追究相关责任人的罪行。可以看到美国国会这次提出的法轮功保护法案不仅仅是一个立法提案，更是一场对人性的考验。25年来，法轮功修炼者用自己的生命诉说真相。那么佩里议员呢，则认为他自己是身在其中的，他觉得我们每个人都身在其中，不应该沉默，不能够退缩。观众朋友，您同意吗？这条路可能不容易，但是就像佩里议员所说的，只要坚持，暴行终将结束。而当我们回头来看的时候呢，才会不后悔。观众朋友，如果您也认同他所建议的，那您也可以行动起来。 比如说联系自己选区的议员，跟周围的人分享真相，或者是转发这个专访节目，让更多人来关注这个法案，推动正义的实现。如果您对这个话题有任何的看法的话，欢迎您在评论区留言跟我们交流。在这里呢，也提醒您订阅辛恬面对面，我们将继续关注解决这场人道危机的最新进展。好的，非常感谢您的收看，我们就下次节目再见喽，拜拜。订阅辛恬面对面频道，并打开小铃铛，这样就不会错过最新的视频节目了。